What's up, my historians? This week we focused on the Middle Ages. Now, the Middle Ages period was a period that came right after the fall of Rome. So let's look at my timeline. You might have the timeline of Mesopotamia, ancient China, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece. Then you have Rome rises at 500 BC. Then you have the first century, and then a couple of years later, you have the birth of Christ, 500 CE, and then a couple hundred years later, you have the Middle Ages. Now, as you can see with the Middle Ages, right above it, around that same time, you have ancient Mali. So like I tell my students all the time, when we think about time, we typically think that time happens on a linear line, which is not true. So yeah, we might learn about these civilizations at different points of our life. They still coexisted with each other. So the ancient Mali civilization was right around the same time that the Middle Ages period was going on at the same time as well. Now, because Rome is just coming to an end, it still had a lot of influence on the Middle Ages period. How? Let me tell you. So just like the Romans, the Middle Ages relied on a feudal system. This feudal system was similar to the caste system that we see in ancient India, separating everybody into hierarchies, all right? You got higher class, middle class, lower class, except it's separated between kings, knights, lords, and peasants. Now, what is a lord? A lord is somebody who owned a large piece of land during that time. So you have this person who owns a large piece of land. Who is working on this land? The peasants. So they have this mutual agreement of, you come work for me, I'll provide housing and food for you. You take care of my cattle, you could then eat the food from the cattle. It was a nice negotiable agreement. To also compare and contrast, because that's something that we're also working on, just like in ancient Greece, Sparta, to be exact, you have the Sparta boys who would be going to school at age 7 to be educated on how to fight, how to use different tools so they could be ready for battle when they get older. Before they could become a knight, which would be the age 21, they would become a squire first. A squire was kind of like a sidekick. Think of Batman and Robin. You're Robin. Now, during this age, they're also learning about chivalry. Now, what is chivalry? We hear this term all the time. We hear chivalry is dead. Now, what does that mean? In order to be a knight, you have to be a gentleman. Now, we hear the term chivalry is dead. Now, what does that mean exactly? Chivalry was a code that knights had to follow basically on how to treat people, specifically people who are weaker than you and women. This involved opening up their doors, pulling out their chairs, all right? You cold? Here's my jacket. That's where all of that comes from. Knights. This established a certain expectation for knights and squires as well. They set such a high standard, we're disappointed today. It's kind of sad. And then now we're introduced to an epidemic, something worse than COVID, the bubonic plague. That'll be my next video. Comment down below if you learned something new today.